Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing some PvP and talking about the Virtuoso and how it's been functioning in PvP. A lot of things that could be changed, but there is some good here if you play Greatsword. But overall, let's just jump right into it and talk about the Virtuoso in PvP. So right now, I'm actually running Demolisher, Amulet, Power, Precision, Toughness, and Ferocity. I am running Rune of Divinity just because I want a little bit of extra health and all the stats. It's Rune of the Worm actually would probably be really cool. Worm runes aren't too bad if you want a little bit more damage. Exposure, your next attack after you swapped this weapon, inflicts 5 stacks of vulnerability, which is good. And then Sigil of Exploitation, deal 5% extra damage to targets below 50% health. You're really going to capitalize on low health targets. And then I'm also taking, actually we're going to change this. I should be taking Sigil of Separation and then Sigil of Exploitation. Deal 5% increased damage to targets when you're above 500 distance and then below as well. It's really good. You can do, if you want to stack a lot of damage on this, you probably want to just go full like distance damage application. So right now for the Virtuoso, I've been kind of messing around with a couple traits here. I'm just gonna leave that over there. But for Domination, I'm taking Rending Shatter. Shatter skills inflict vulnerability on hit, but Empowered Illusions could work as well if you want to focus on your phantasms on your weapons. But even Bountiful Blades would work too, because you get additional Mirror Blade bounces, which really helps with illusion and blade generation. Next, I'm actually taking Shattered Concentration to remove those boons on enemies. But Egotism I've also been messing around with. It's only 5% damage, which is not a lot. But if you are fighting someone with lower health than you, you get that 5%. And then if your sigils are also proccing, that's 10% extra damage just for fighting foes below 50% health. And if you're above 50% health, you're going to be doing 10% more damage just baseline. But Shattered Concentration right now is pretty cool. And then Mental Anguish, really strong. I enjoy it. It's great. Next, Dueling. Phantasmal Fury, I've been also using as well. But Deceptive Decoy does allow you to gain another blade generation, and it will give you a little bit of stealth. But, of course, because if you are in the middle of a fight, getting struck below 50% health, you're going to stealth, but you're probably going to just instantly be revealed because you're probably attacking or something, or doing something. So Decoy, the stealth, it's kind of meh. I think it's more PvE oriented, but Phantasmal Fury is cool. Next, Evasive Mirror for some extra reflex on a successful dodge or evasion, but Blinding Dissipation could work as well for a little bit extra survivability if you're getting a lot of those blind procs off of multiple people. And then finally, I'm taking Deceptive Evasion. I'm going to use this for some more blade generation in PvP, but if you want to go ultra damage, Superiority Complex, your critical hits deal more damage. Critical hits damage against disabled foes is increased as well. It does a lot of damage, especially if you're at ranged. But Deceptive Evasion is nice as well. And next, Virtuoso. I'm taking Blade Turn Refrain. It's 3¼ seconds, which is good for a stomp. You shatter, use your Blade Song into a stomp. You have Aegis for pretty much the entire stomp animation. Next, Duelist Reversal for extra quickness and Fury uptime. Phantasmal Blades, I think that the blade should deal more damage. The Fury is nice. It's a bit more Fury, but the blade in PvP only does 83 damage. And if the developer's comments on the live stream were correct, you can't do much to actually improve this damage because it's stagnant based on the illusion's weapon damage. If that's still the case, I think this should just be a flat, like, manipulated damage skill. But of course, these things could be, you know, there are obviously changes going on all the time. That might not be how it actually works. But in PvP, this damage is so low. It's too low. I think the damage should be around like 200 to even be like considered. I think in PvE, it's like 400 damage or something. Overall, I think the damage aspect could be a little bit better, but. And next, I'm taking Infinite Forge. Automatically stock blades while below the minimum blade count. So long as you're in combat, you're going to be generating blades if you're below 3. Once again, I would like if this trait gave you the ability to hold 6 blades total. Just because, you know, Psychic Riposte is also great because you're getting more out of those evades, those dodges, Quickness Fury, your stalking blades, and shooting one. This blade is even less powerful. It's only 55 damage. If anything, this could be like 100 damage, while the Phantasmal blade could be like 200 damage or something. But the Virtuoso, as you might already know if you've played in PvP, doesn't do a whole lot of damage, especially on the dagger. But next, let's actually talk about the dagger and the weapons and everything else. So I'm running dagger focus. The focus is actually really fun. And then greatsword. Greatsword is just so powerful, which is really funny if you think about it, considering this should be like the blade generator, but everything else, all the other weapons that Mesmer has does that so much better than the actual elite spec weapon, which is really funny. But overall, one thing that I would like to point out is that Flying Cutter, the flurry damage aspect to this won't actually proc on a downed body, which makes this even worse. This skill does so little damage in PvP that it's laughable. It does pierce, which is nice, but it won't actually sustain that cleave on a downed body, which is hopefully just a bug. But Flying Cutter, the base damage I actually could see being a little bit higher, if in all honesty, because the projectile is so slow. It's on a half a second cast time. So you have to factor all these things in. If Flying Cutter's projectile speed was increased by a little bit, or if the damage was increased to around like 300, that would just be a little bit extra love to the dagger. I think there needs to be a functionality change on Blade Call. Blade Call currently works as a fan. The daggers are so slim in PvP, it's really hard to hit them. And additionally, you get more use out of this in melee range, but dagger is not a melee weapon. It really isn't, because you have no survivability. What I would prefer this to be is Blade Call acting similar to Kala's Short Bow 3. And the Short Bow 3 was recently changed where the arrows spawn close to you and they automatically track to your target. So I think it'd be cool if Blade Call, I know right now you don't actually have to have a target to use it. It could still function to where you don't need a target to use it, where the 3 blades would actually spawn a bit wider next to your character and then go in towards a location at the very end, meaning you're gonna get more use out of this from playing it ranged. And also it would be a little bit easier to actually hit those blades if they tracked a target, and if you didn't have a target select, they would just fire in a triangle formation to a point at the very end. So I think Blade Call needs to be changed in terms of its formation and the way that the skill fires. And you only stock 1 blade if you strike a target. I think Blade Call should also stock a blade on its return. It should be able to stock 2 blades if you think about it, because Greatsword does so much more blade generation. So if you hit a target when it's going towards the enemy, it gets 1 blade, and if any blades hit on the way back, you'd get another one. That would be pretty cool, just a little bit extra blade generation on the dagger. And then I actually really love Unstable Blade Storm. I like that it's slow, I like that you prep it. It lingers in an area, which makes it great for cleave, just to make it a little bit more scary. But I think if this applied a little more damage, or if it applied like 1 stack of vuln. Next, utilities. I think Twin Blade Restoration should be able to be used while you're running behind. Because right now, if you're running away from a target, the twin blades, the projectiles will fire towards you. I think if you have a foe selected behind you and you're running away, it'd be really cool if you use this ability and the blades actually shoot behind you while you're running as well. 1,000 Cuts. I like that 1,000 Cuts has a reduced recharge in PvP. It's only 60 seconds, while in PvE it's 75. It is very narrow. This is really more well utilized on a downed body, or if you use this into the focus 4 and then collapse it to pull those in, and then you get some more use out of 1,000 Cuts. But I think 1,000 Cuts, the overall radius of the skill, the width of the actual blades, could be increased by just a bit. Similar to the Willbender's F2, I like that they're not going super large with the radii or the projectile radii, symbol radii, spell effect radii. I like that it's a bit more strategic, but this does feel a little too slim for the sake of movement and keeping in mind movement. People running away from this, it's really easy to actually move out of. So 1,000 Cuts, if the width of it was actually a bit widened, that could be really cool. Or if it just kind of frayed out towards the end to hit more targets. Because right now, if it was just a little bit wider, I like it. Or if the cooldown was even reduced to 55 seconds, that would be good. But I think one final thing that I didn't actually mention, mental focus is even more, I don't want to say useless, because if you do sword, it's cool. But mental focus only does 7% increased damage when you're in melee. And I know, it's so sad. I think mental focus should instead mimic Pure of Sight Dragon Hunter trait, where it's a sliding scale that dynamically increases damage. The closer you are, you gain like 5% increased damage, but if you're at maximum range, you get 10% increased damage in PvP, something like that. The melee, people are going to be running great sword power builds. The sword could be useful, mostly because Dagger is so underpowered and useless in PvP. It's hard to hit things, it doesn't generate enough blades as quickly as the greatsword does, and the auto attack doesn't even cleave a downed body, and it doesn't even activate its flurry mechanic. So mental focus, if it was a sliding scale from 5% at close range to a maximum of 10% at maximum range, that'd be cool. Bottom line, no one's gonna take it unless you're doing blade generation in PvE, Bloodsong. That's the only good part. But these two, no. Overall, let's go pop in and watch some gameplay of the Virtuoso. Okay, welcome to this gameplay section. First, I often will charge on my blades with Blade Renewal. I got a little scared because I actually accidentally dropped down there, but I was perfectly fine. But for this build, I try to stay at ranged, and here we got a nice pull. I actually went into a Sword of Decimation, and I got the mob off. That was really good timing. I love their strategicness of this spec. Oftentimes it can be pure luck, but there are some situations when you can really just hone it in on it. The Dagger 3, despite its somewhat clunkiness, when it hits a wall, it dissipates. It does decent cleave damage on such a large point as this one. And then here I'm just trying to stay somewhat at ranged. We're moving on over into Greatsword. Sword Decimation did not land that time, but the Greatsword is absolutely wonderful on this. If you're having some difficulty on Dagger, I would definitely recommend swapping to your Greatsword and your other weapon set. Psychic Force here just to knock back the other Mesmer, and just trying to get as many hits off on the Bladesong F1. They thankfully go down, which means that we don't have to necessarily fight another Mesmer. I believe they were Mirage? Not fun. Mirage and Core Mesmer can really burn down a Virtuoso quite easily. But it's a matter of the game. It's a matter of playing safe, and that's what I like about this Elite spec. It feels like it really gets value at range, and being able to get those free casts off. Here we get pulled into a little bit of a sticky situation. I use my Blade Turn Requiem, the blocks and the daggers spinning around. I kind of feel like the daggers spinning around for Blade Turn Requiem should also cripple foes if you're close, mostly because you don't have a lot of mobility. It's somewhat difficult. I used 1,000 cuts there to cover my downed ally, and it managed to cleave them enough. Oh my god, my voice. But Virtuoso has been so much fun as a team fighter. It's really shined in situations where you're being not necessarily focused too hard. You might get a couple ranged attacks on you, but with proper Aegis and evasion, you'll have just a fine time. But when it comes to the focus combo, it's really fun to pop down the focus 4, pull everyone into it, and if you have your 1,000 cuts already rolling, you can get some decent use out of it. But the focus actually is a really great weapon on the Dagger slot, because it does allow you a little bit more swiftness, a little bit more cripple on enemies, and also that lovely pull. Just got it down here and just trying to stay alive. The condies, the poison, all that will start to really eat away at your health, and Virtuoso doesn't have that many condi removal and condi clears. Here's a situation with little 1v1. I know this Grapper ends up going to the Lord and they do extra damage to them, but you have some 1v1 potential if you play really smart and know your skills and know your positioning. But I would say 1v1 probably not the best, but it could be done if you have the help of a Lord. But thank you everyone so much for coming. Like if you'd like to comment down below your thoughts about the Virtuoso and PvP, and subscribe, become a Patreon, use my links down below. Thanks for reading it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye everyone!